Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Pages to Pixels podcast. I'm Keerthana,
I'm Rohan.
and this week we're talking about Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. According to IMDb, this is the film's logline. The origin story of renegade warrior Furiosa before her encounter and team up with Mad Max. In case it isn't clear, this is a part of the entire Mad Max franchise, and
Yep.
I'm given to understand it's a prequel to the Fury Road.
To Furia, that's the fourth one. In terms of giving context, I have seen Mad Max One, which I just believe is just called Mad Max. Mad Max Two, which I think is the Road Warrior. I did not see Mad Max Three, Beyond Thunderdome, because apparently everyone told me you don't need to watch it. I did see Fury Road, which I absolutely love, and when I watched Fury Road, I really loved it. It's funny, and in Fury Road, I really love the character of Furiosa. That's the movie that she was introduced in, and it's funny because even though the movie is called Mad Max, Max is not the main character. It's really her, Furiosa, which you can argue that maybe it's a co-protagonist story, but I don't think you can make the argument of Max over Furiosa.
This is my first film in the Mad Max franchise. I will say I quite loved it, so I will probably go back and watch some of the others, especially Fury Road. But no, this one I went in blind. I had no context about anything, didn't read up, and I had a great time.
Oh yeah, I was actually very curious to see what you would think of this movie because of that, because I knew that you hadn't seen any of the other movies, so you had zero attachment to the world, to the characters,
Yeah.
to anything.
No, I mean, I really enjoyed it. So for a little more context, the movie is about 2.5 hours long.
Yep.
And I think my only real complaint was the runtime. Otherwise, the film was really intense, very very gripping for sure.
Oh yeah.
It kept me like at the edge of my seat, paying attention through the entire runtime. So no, I really enjoyed the movie. How about you?
Yeah, no, I thought it was great. Just even when you break down in terms of every aspect of it, whether it's the acting, the visuals. Oh my god, the visuals were amazing. Of course, you got to talk about the stunts and action sequences. A lot of it, which was practical. I know it's not as much as Fury Road. Fury Road got a ton of praise for having a ton of practical effects and practical stunts. And they definitely used a little bit more green screen and more CGI for Furiosa, and I believe that's because the making of Fury Road was kind of a nightmare. When you take an entire cast and crew to the middle of the desert to film a movie, it's not exactly the most fun experience.
I can imagine. I mean, I know that Dune had some of those issues as well. And there were a lot of conversations around it. So I can imagine what this is going to be like, because the entire thing basically happens on a desert.
Yep.
We get very few, even like scenes that are inside any sort of a building.
Yeah.
So I can, like, a lot of this just seems like straight up outdoor shots. So
Yeah. That is kind of the world of the franchise, because the franchise is about what if a drought gets so severe that all of a sudden there are wars over water, and water is kind of the most valuable resource in the world. Movie that came out in the 70s, which I think, or franchise that started in the 70s, which I think is relevant even today.
yeah, I was just about to say, it's interesting how so many of our movies today talk about what it's going to be like if we don't start conserving our resources now. And yet, when you go to a movie theater, they give you use and throw, like paper cups, or like, I don't know, just anything you use is use and throw. It's single use.
Yeah.
Just makes you wonder.
Yeah. So really, when it comes to this movie, the two things I want to talk about the most are one, why this works as a great prequel, and two, why this works as a great action movie and narratively. One, I think as a prequel, for one, it stands on its own. You have not seen the others, and you were able to enjoy this
completely
movie.
follow everything. There was no. I didn't feel like I was missing context. Maybe I missed out on a couple of Easter eggs. It also, I think, did a great job of setting up Furiosa because it's
Yeah.
like she is such a compelling character, and you want to root for her right from the beginning.
Mhm.
So the fact that now I know that her story is going to continue.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm definitely going to watch the next movie. So what it needed to do, it succeeded in doing.
Yeah, and by the way, the next movie actually starts right where Furiosa ends. Because in the next movie, Fury Road is all about Furiosa trying to transport the Immortan Joe's wives to the green place that we see in the beginning of the movie. And so the movie, when that starts out, it starts out with them already in the rig, and then you reveal that they're in the rig. This movie ends with her
putting them in the rig, basically.
getting them in the oil rig. So it's literally seconds.
Oh wait.
Yeah.
That's cool. I did not know that. I did hear chatter in the movie theater, but I made the choice to not pay attention to any of that. No, this seems like a very interesting franchise that's worth all the time and effort. So.
But another reason why that this movie works as a prequel is because I think it actually makes Fury Road better. One criticism that a lot of people brought to it was that the story and the storytelling is a bit thin, and I can understand from the story perspective. If you zoom out, it is about like, hey, go to one place, big car chase in the middle, make a U-turn, big car chase in the middle. That is kind of, but when you watch the movie, especially having seen Furiosa, it is, for a movie that has no screenplay, by the way, because Fury Road did not have a screenplay.
That's something too.
At least not in the traditional sense.
That's interesting.
I feel like it's an extremely well written movie because every single little beat of action, whether it's action in terms of fighting the villains or just action in terms of one of the wives opening the door and standing outside of the car during one of the chase sequences, everything feels motivated by character. Everything has a goal. There's no purposeless action in that movie or purposeless dialogue, which there's not a lot of dialogue in any of these movies. But that's because every single line of dialogue that there is not wasted.
No, that's very true. When you say that there wasn't a script, are you saying that there was just not even a beat sheet, or just there was no dialogue draft?
And there wasn't a script in a traditional sense. It was all storyboards.
Oh, well, that makes so much sense, because if you look at these frames, it's obvious that that's kind of how it might have been born. Which I think takes us really nicely into what I was about to say about Furiosa. I thought that the cinematography was incredible.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and the level of storytelling in each shot. Like, there's this one shot where you see a skull.
Oh, yeah.
That's in the ground, and then a vehicle drives over it, and that's how we enter the shot of the vehicle. I thought that was genius, and there's a bunch of shots that are composed that way.
Yeah.
It felt a little Spielberg-esque to me, in that sense.
Oh, really?
Where you have one subject and then it just transitions to another subject within the shot.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah. That is kind of a staple of these Mad Max movies. There's going to be when you watch Fury Road, you're going to see a ton of shots like that also.
Yeah, because I liked it especially because I feel like it keeps it within the language.
Yeah.
In a sense. The story was very simple and straightforward. Furiosa has been removed from her home, which is the green place.
Yeah.
And she's trying to find her way back.
Yep.
That's basically it. I think the structure was also like fairly straightforward. I feel like I was able to tell our basic beats, like the inciting incident, midpoint, all that stuff was pretty clear. I will say that the low point hurt me. I felt so bad when I would say that the low point was when Chris Hemsworth's character captures both of them, the couple, and she loses the directions.
Oh yeah.
To go back home. That was gut-wrenching. Honestly, it was so sad.
That scene is intense. They don't just kill him, but they make him run till he collapses and dies. And I think that's one thing that I gotta also mention is the creativity in every little thing. Even when she finally gets her revenge on Chris Hemsworth, it's not, she doesn't just shoot him in the head or something.
Yeah.
She plants the seed.
Oh.
Or small things like showing the passage of time. It's her wig on a tree branch, and we see the tree branch grow
Yep.
to show that years have gone by,
I-
as opposed to 8 years later. Whatever.
Yep. This is him, right?
Yes, Tom
Yeah,
Burke.
Tom Burke. Okay, there you go. I really liked the way they showed the passage of time in the film. It was also very cool how I know that they did a bunch of montage shots. They did like a bunch of like dissolved time lapses.
Yeah.
I wish more films did that, because it's like it's fine to break like traditional narrative, visual narrative structure to get your point across. Like, we have the resources of things like time lapses or visual effects or whatever to facilitate that, to facilitate telling the story. I really enjoyed it, and I think it was smart how they did it.
Yeah. And when we talk about visual storytelling, this is one of the things that stands out in both this movie as well as Fury Road, which is that so many action movies, the structure is kind of, and I'm not talking structure in terms of inciting incident, act to a break, midpoint, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking structure as in kind of the flow of the movie. It's story, 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 big action sequence where the story takes a break. Story, 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 action sequence, story takes a break. In this one, it's all action, but the reason why it doesn't become tiresome is because the action is actually telling the story, as opposed to the action causing a pause in the narrative.
No, very true. I think especially when her identity is revealed, that is one of those scenes where, in the middle of the action, you're getting more story. No, it was a very exciting movie. Visually stunning. I thought all the performances were spectacular.
Oh yeah,
Chris Hemsworth surprised me so much. I mean, after like Thor: Love and Thunder, I thought this was such a big step up. He was really good.
It's maybe my favorite performance that I've seen him.
See, that's the thing. I never thought I would root for Chris Hemsworth today. And I mean, here we are. I mean, he's just so, I feel like there was a lot of meat in this character, and he just like slurped it up. He was clearly enjoying himself. I also thought that the girl who played Furiosa as a child did really well. She was great. Yeah, she has very intense eyes, and I mean, it was very, her work was very effective. It kept me engaged throughout. Yeah,
and she had to be because, this movie is split into 5 chapters, and I believe the first 2 chapters were entirely her. And then I want to say she was even there for a little bit of chapter 3.
Yeah, but I will be honest, I wasn't quite able to tell when the transition happened.
Same. Me neither. I was actually looking up, I was watching some YouTube videos of people just giving their general thoughts about this movie, and that is something that a lot of people say, that they were like, I didn't even realize when the transition happened. It's so seamless.
Yeah, it was beautiful. The set design, I mean, whatever designing they did, and I think the makeup was also brilliant. Especially when there's that one blood shot, where I don't know, like one of these characters, he uses a flare gun, but it like disperses blood. At least that's what they made it look like. And then Chris Hemsworth becomes all red, and his beard starts becoming red from the blood.
Oh, I think the flare was just red.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, well
either way, it still looked awesome.
But if I'm being honest, when I watched that scene for like a good 10 minutes after that, I was like, ew, that's blood on him. So this is okay. I'm glad I found out it's not like actual blood. That's
yeah.
No, I
think it would have been a little bit more wet than actual blood.
I agree. I was a little grossed out by that. I was like, this man is just walking around with blood in his beard. Like, what the hell? All the characters were like, is this based on IP?
I mean, it's a franchise, yes, but I don't believe that there's a book or anything like that it's based off of. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that when the original Mad Max came out, that was an original movie.
Well, if that's the case, then they were some extremely well-written characters. It's very hard to build such three-dimensional characters with when you're just going off of when you're just straight up writing a movie. Because when we draw from IP, like when we draw from existing IP like books or comics, video games, whatever, they're not as restrictive as movies are as a medium. For example, in Dune, the author of the book series obviously had the time and resource to go and build these characters out.
Yeah.
And make them like fully like three-dimensional fleshed out characters.
Yeah.
It would have been very hard to achieve the same thing with just a screenplay.
I think the editing also is something we got to talk about. Editing and score, sound also in general. It's from a technical level. There's not very many. I can't think of a single flaw with this movie. The editing is so crisp. All the action it's crazy and wild and out there, but it's easy to follow.
Yeah, I will say there were a couple of scenes where I could tell it was green screen.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to say which scenes they were, because if someone that's listening to this watched it and couldn't tell, then good for them.
Yeah, no, there was definitely a few green screen. No, there's definitely a few scenes, with noticeable green screen. I don't remember which ones off the top of my head, but I definitely noticed it. I was like, yeah, that looks a little green screeny.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a very well done movie.
Yeah, the sound is just incredible.
Yeah, they didn't hold back when like people were getting injured or like when the truck was going on top of a human. It was not. I feel like for the past, what is it, like 3 weeks now, we've been watching movies that are absolutely not my genre. And surprisingly, I've enjoyed most of them.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when the movies are
well made.
Yeah. That's, again, an action movie that actually, where the action is pushing the narrative forward as opposed to breaking the narrative.
I guess my only issue with this was the narrative. I mean, was the length, was the runtime.
Yeah.
And honestly, that was probably because it was a very tight screenplay. Like, if you told me...
Yeah.
So I'm complaining that this is a 2.5 hour runtime. But if you ask me what I would cut, I wouldn't be able to tell you. Because I thought the way it was constructed was very clean and very well done. It does take a lot to focus on just action for the 2.5 hours. Also, like, movie theaters in the US don't have an interval. What?
And so you can cram more show times during the day.
Oh, that makes so much sense. That fits like a puzzle. But I don't know, I feel like I would have appreciated an interval in this one. Could have gone and refreshed my popcorn.
Yeah, I think certain movies that maybe if it's above like this runtime, whether that's say 2.5 hours, let's say that's the cutoff, maybe like shorter movies, I'm like, okay, I don't really need one. But yeah.
Well, speaking of the length, how long do you think the draft was? Like, I feel like for sure it was over 180 pages because it's all action. It's like barely any dialogue.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I don't know. So I know Fury Road's screenplay, quote unquote, was all storyboard. I don't know if Furiosa is the same way. I definitely think there was more scenes in Furiosa where they are kind of standing and talking. Fury Road had like none of that.
I did go online and I tried to find the script. All I found was that apparently there were a bunch of scenes that were leaked a while ago.
Okay.
At least that's what Reddit told me.
Got it.
But other than that, I can't seem to find a PDF, which is strange because most often than not, if you ever want to read a screenplay, you literally just have to go Google it and you'll find it.
It depends. There's definitely some that are harder to find than others.
Yeah, I mean, it's usually never like a task to find a screenplay.
Yeah, I have noticed that usually big franchise movies is a little bit harder to find unless they are submitted for awards consideration.
But also, do you want to read the Ant-Man script?
No.
No, but so I'm not entirely sure if there was a script in the traditional sense for this one.
Yeah.
Might be worth looking into.
I want to talk about the world building because this is one of the things that also that makes Fury Road better. Fury Road, especially if you've never seen one of the other Mad Max movies, you can still follow it perfectly fine, but it does throw you right into the action. There is kind of zero world building. You're just dropped into it, and you are... I mean, it works in the sense that you feel like you're just as confused and lost as Tom Hardy is in that movie. But this really expands the world. For example, we see in Fury Road, we only see the Citadel for a bit. We never see Gastown. We never see Bullet Farm. They're kind of mentioned in passing. They're like, oh yeah, they're going to Gastown and Bullet Farm. That's how the movie starts, is they're going. But I completely forgot that existed. And then when I was rewatching Fury Road and they mentioned Gastown and Bullet Farm, I'm like, okay, I know exactly like all the characters' intentions and what they're thinking. And then that's where I said where every small action, even when it's like just a small look that the characters do in Fury Road, is enhanced because of the amount of setup that was done in Furiosa.
No, I agree. I also think Bullet Farm is like a really cool name for anything.
Yeah.
Like, just call a house a Bullet Farm or a child. I don't know. I just think it's a really cool name.
Also, we should probably talk about when Fury Road came out, there was a lot of praise for it being a very feminist movie. There was also a lot of hate from men's rights activists for saying that it's too woke and too feminist.
What is too feminist? Oh my god.
And I think Furiosa kind of doubles down on that, especially you look at the world, it's the chaotic places are Bullet Farm, Citadel, Gastown, all controlled by men. The green place is this paradise where there's a ton of women.
I mean, that is how I imagine a matriarchal society would turn Earth. I think it would become a happier, more welcoming, inclusive space. But let's not go down that tangent.
And they can fight, but they don't go to war.
Yeah.
Well, the men are like,
attack. They can barely fight. But I was going to bring it up. I thought this was an excellent film. There was the trope of her pretending to be a man for a while in order to, I guess, not by what's his name?
It was the son. It's one is Scrotus, one is Rectus.
Yeah, very appropriately named. So she did pretend to be a guy for, I'm gonna say, a few years.
Yeah.
At least that's what the narrative tells us. But after that, there's never a moment where like you feel like, because they don't make an effort to make her look muscular and tall and large, any of those things. I thought it was really cool to see a woman just keep on persisting. Like she just does not give up until the very end. Like when she slices her arm off, I was just like, holy shit. Like that was amazing.
That was another example of the movie being creative. It's not just that the arm gets crushed, it's that she slices it off to escape. Yeah, and
honestly, I mean, I thought it was, as much as I hate the idea of a character chopping off their arm on screen, I thought it serviced the story.
Yeah. And technically it happened off screen.
Sure. We saw her arm.
Yeah.
And then we saw maggots on her. Okay. There were some moments where I shut my eyes real tight. No, I thought she was a great character, someone to root for, and I love the whole no mercy angle.
Yeah.
I thought anyone that she hurt deserved it, and it was cool to see that.
Yep. All right. What are your favorite scenes or a standout scene?
I think, considering we're talking about like feminism and representation in the movie, I think my favorite scene is very in line with that. There is a point where Tom Burke's character realizes that Anya Taylor-Joy's character is a woman. He chooses to help her, and he tells her that he's going to make it possible for her to escape the Citadel and find her way to wherever she needs to be. However, this plan kind of gets foiled midway, and he's stuck in the Bullet Farm and is about to get killed. At that point, Anya Taylor-Joy's character has the choice to leave. She has the resources she needs as given to her by the man. And she's about to leave, and then she makes the choice to turn back and go help him. And I think in that moment, what the screenplay did was it flipped from being like a male savior sort of vibe and turned it into a like female protagonist film again. I really enjoyed that flip. I thought it worked really well. And it added a lot of layers to her character.
Yeah. And the action sequence itself was spectacular.
It was spectacular.
I think my favorite scene was probably the scene where her identity is revealed. first of all, like I mean, I know they kind of do the thing of like, and I think Mulan did it also, where it's like, yeah, they take off the helmet, and then the long hair is kind of what gives it away. But I like the reason why she took off her helmet. It wasn't just it fell off or anything. Everything was intentional, where she took it off so she could plug the leak that was happening on the vehicle. And then his reaction is, well, we see his reaction. He's kind of like, well, what? But he just kind of goes with it.
Yeah, he doesn't like. Yeah, he doesn't like stop and be like, "Whoa, where did you come from? How did you learn to fight like that?"
But the thing is, we're getting all that with just these subtle looks and camera movement, and again, the rest of the action sequence itself is fantastic. I think that's my favorite action sequence in the movie, particularly the part where the villains are flying with their fans, and then they decide to spin their own fan, suck them in, and kill them. I think that was great.
Yeah, no, that was a really good scene. I will say that I was a little confused with the whole hair part of it. Not in the reveal or anything, but just in her as a character making those
why
decisions.
Did you not?
Yeah, like why not just cut it? Yeah. That was surprising because I'm just saying, if I was in that position and I wanted to pretend to be a dude, I would have made sure not to leave any stone unturned. There was a slightly confusing character choice for me, but I mean, I feel like she's confident enough to beat people up.
Yeah.
So she's not really afraid. But no, that was a very cool scene.
All right, let's get into ratings.
As a reminder, we do our ratings on the screenplay coverage scale. We pass on a movie if we think it's not worth anyone's time or attention. We ask people to consider it if we think there's reason to watch it and effort to be appreciated, and we recommend a movie if we think it's a good watch. What would you say your ratings are for this?
Oh, easily a recommend. This is one of my favorite movies of the year, and I don't know if it quite gets to the level of Fury Road, but that's kind of a masterpiece. So even if it doesn't get to that level, that's not really shade towards this movie, because this movie still operates on a level much higher than most action movies we get.
I agree. I would say a strong consider. Okay. The reason I'm not going for a full recommend is because it is fairly violent. If that's something you're not into, then that's just something to consider before watching it. It's violent and it's visually violent. That's just something to consider while choosing to watch this movie. Speaking of which, what would be your recommendations in the same space?
So I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to recommend doing a double feature of this and Fury Road, because I rewatched Fury Road over this past weekend, and it really, again, Fury Road starts off right where Furiosa ends, and when watching both together, I didn't watch them both in the same day, but when watching both together, it really feels like one giant movie, and Fury Road is a third act to this Furiosa saga.
If you're craving a movie that's similar to Furiosa, the films in the Dune series might be a good watch for you. The worlds are similar. I actually thought that the narratives and the storytelling were also similar enough, where someone who enjoys Furiosa will enjoy Dune as well.
See, I did not feel that way, but
yeah, no, I mean, I funnily enough, I thought even the pacing was similar. I know you heavily disagree, but no, I mean, again, so if you like a film like Furiosa and you want to see something in a similar vein, I would recommend the Dune series.
Yep. And what else have you been watching?
Oh, this week I rewatched Coco, which always just makes me like a crying mess. But it's such a good movie, and I just I feel like it's watching an animated film is just a good break from real life.
Yeah.
And that's usually when I click on an animated film, is when I'm just like, the world sucks. And then I chose Coco. So
yeah, so I started the first 2 episodes of Chicken Nugget on Netflix. It is a Korean show about a man whose daughter accidentally turns into a chicken nugget. And then he has to figure out a way to turn her back. Ridiculous premise. Kind of a ridiculous show, but it works. It's so funny. I love it.
I'm just saying, like, they green like this, but then when I go pitch like a basic feminist film, they're like, oh, maybe not. I don't know. This is risky. Let's not do anything anti-whatever. Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. That's it for this week's episode of Pages of Pixels. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Rohan.
I'm Keerthana.
And we're signing off. Please remember, if you enjoy these, do like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thank you.
And see you next week.